Imagine a map of the universe where the boundaries aren't drawn by gravity or, galaxies,
Right.
or even dimensions of space and time. Instead, imagine a cosmology where the dividing line between the mortal world and paradise is determined entirely by, well, how honest people are capable of being with one another. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, so today we are exploring a highly unorthodox philosophical and spiritual text from 2006. It's titled, What Counts as Having Crossed the River, Part 1.
And it's written by an author using the name Deiform Celestial.
Right, exactly, Deiform Celestial. And before we really get into the mechanics of their worldview, we should probably lay out exactly what our mission is for you, the listener, today.
Yeah, that's super important. So the text serves as a foundational document for a group called Lifechanyuan. And, Lifechanyuan is a controversial new religious movement.
Right.
Our goal here is not to endorse their doctrines or debate their practices. We're really just here to act as objective guides to the source material you've provided.
We just want to impartially unpack the ideas.
Exactly. We're going to unpack the internal logic of this specific 2006 document because it presents this fascinating, almost, inverted approach to concepts like spiritual ascension, the afterlife, and human relationships.
Yeah, we're going to examine the whole architecture of their philosophy. And the entry point the author uses to introduce this entire belief system is a concept that is universally familiar, but honestly, handled in a completely unconventional way.
The soulmate.
The soulmate, yeah. The text doesn't ease the reader into its theology at all. It just opens by posing a very blunt question about human suffering.
Right. It asks why it is so profoundly difficult for us to find soulmates in our everyday lives.
Which is a great hook, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, we all kind of wonder that.
Oh, totally. And the answer provided by Deiform Celestial really sets the stage for everything else in the document. The text argues that the scarcity of soulmates has absolutely nothing to do with luck or timing.
No cosmic matching system.
Nope. It is entirely a symptom of our own psychological and spiritual defensiveness. According to the author, human beings fundamentally lack frankness. We are essentially terrified of being known.
Yeah, and the imagery used in the text to describe this defensiveness is really striking. The author claims that we monitor the people around us like thieves.
Like thieves.
We want to analyze everyone else. We want to figure out their motives and categorize their behaviors. But we absolutely refuse to offer that same transparency in return. We just wrap our inner worlds in layers of self-protection.
It's so true, though.
It is. If you think about it like a high-security corporate facility, we are constantly demanding to scan everyone else's retinal data.
Right, checking their ID badges.
Exactly. Checking their ID badges, patting them down. But we keep our own office doors double-locked with the blinds drawn tight.
Well, and under those conditions, finding a soulmate becomes structurally impossible.
Right.
Because the text defines a soulmate not as some, romantic conquest or someone you possess, but as another self that resonates perfectly with your own.
A perfect resonance.
Yeah. It describes a relationship built on absolute mutual enrichment, where neither party restricts or, pillages the other. It requires a total willingness to devote your lives to each other while allowing complete freedom.
Which is a tall order.
It really is. You cannot achieve that kind of resonance if you are hiding behind layers of encryption.
Which makes logical sense. I mean, a mirror cannot reflect an encrypted file.
Exactly.
If your true self is hidden in a vault, nobody can resonate with it. But the source material takes this interpersonal psychology and scales it up to a literal cosmic level.
Yeah, this is where it gets wild.
It does. The author uses this exact concept of the soulmate to define the physical and spiritual geography of the entire universe.
Right, so the cosmological map in this text is entirely relational. The author defines the mortal world, the human realm we currently inhabit, by one single defining characteristic.
Now it's that.
The mortal world is simply a place where soulmates cannot be found. The environment is defined by the absence of that connection.
Wow. Contrasts that with how the text describes the higher realms. It names specific heavenly destinations, right?
Yeah, the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world.
Right. And the author argues these realms are paradises, not because they offer physical luxury or, eternal rest playing harps on clouds, but for one highly specific reason.
They're populated by massive groups of soulmates.
Massive groups.
Yeah. The text asserts that darkness, obfuscation, and hiding one's true nature are the actual root causes of fear.
Right, because when you are stumbling around in the dark, Unable to see others clearly and hiding yourself, you cannot possibly experience joy.
Exactly. Therefore, heaven is simply defined as an environment where that darkness has been completely eradicated. It is a space where souls are completely bare and totally resonant.
And the author takes a very rigid stance on this. The text doesn't treat our tendency to hide or be hypocritical as just a bad habit that we should, try to unlearn.
No, not at all.
It labels hypocrisy as a literal symptom of an imperfect life structure. And the text capitalizes the word life here, capital L-I-F-E,
Right, yeah.
just to distinguish it from biological existence.
That concept of the life structure is basically the central engine of the Lifechanyuan philosophy.
Okay, unpack that a bit for us.
So the text suggests we have a non-material architecture to our being. If you are hypocritical, or if you are selfish, which, by the way, the author specifically labels as the chief criminal of all human pain.
The chief criminal, yeah.
Right, so if you're selfish, your actual spiritual architecture is flawed. It's not just a behavioral issue, it is a structural defect in your core operating system.
Okay, so if we follow that internal logic
Mm-hmm.
and we accept the premise that selfishness and hypocrisy are like structural defects, the immediate question becomes, well, how does this text propose we fix that structure?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, because nearly every spiritual tradition in human history has some kind of method, a ritual, or a curriculum designed for self-improvement.
And the author is highly aware of those other traditions. The text actually spends a significant portion drawing a very sharp, deliberate line between the methods of Lifechanyuan and the methods of other sects.
Specifically calling out Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, and Islam.
Yeah. The text groups a wide variety of global religious practices together and just dismisses them as mere skills.
Mere skills.
Yeah.
Let's actually list those practices because the text rapid fires some highly specific, pretty esoteric terminology here.
Oh, for sure.
So the author mentions dredging meridians, practicing alchemy, chanting mantras, reciting sutras, meditating, practicing pranayama, collecting ki, and engaging in twin cultivation.
It's quite a list.
It is. And just to provide some quick context for you, the listener, dredging meridians and collecting ki refer to traditional Chinese medicine and Taoist practices of like clearing energy pathways in the body.
Right.
And pranayama is yogic breath control from Hindu traditions. Twin cultivation often refers to esoteric Taoist sexual practices meant to exchange energy.
Right. So by grouping all of those vastly different traditions together, the author is making a really calculated rhetorical move. The text reduces centuries of diverse, complex religious rituals down to the level of technical exercises.
Like hobbies almost.
Exactly. It compares them to someone learning a complex coding language or trying to download a software patch while completely ignoring the fact that their computer's motherboard is physically broken in half.
I love that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So chanting a mantra or mastering a breathing technique might give you a temporary benefit, but it doesn't fix the underlying life structure that is corrupted by selfishness.
That is the core argument. For Lifechanyuan, the sole focus must be on perfecting that non-material life structure.
Capital L-I-F-E.
Exactly. The text claims that once the structure is perfected, once that chief criminal of selfishness is evicted, you will naturally acquire the Tao and become a celestial being.
Just naturally.
Yeah. And your level of structural perfection dictates the exact realm you eventually inhabit, whether that is the 1,000-year world or the Elysium world.
Okay, I see the internal logic there. But, reading through the source material, I actually found a massive paradox in how they instruct people to achieve this structural perfection.
Oh, really? Which part?
The text claims that practitioners walk two paths simultaneously. First, there is the path of life lowercase l, which is defined as enjoying your current human existence and contributing to humanity.
Okay,
And second, there's the path of life, capital L, which means extending your spiritual existence into those higher level heavenly spaces.
The dual path. Yeah, it is a very distinct feature of this specific theology.
But isn't that inherently contradictory? I mean, if we look at the historical context of the major religions the author just critiqued, like Buddhism or early Christianity, the prevailing wisdom is usually asceticism.
Fasting, giving up wealth, that sort of thing.
Right. We are taught that to achieve true spiritual ascension, we have to detach ourselves from worldly pleasures. We take vows of poverty or silence and turn our focus entirely away from earthly joy to concentrate on the divine.
Yeah, that's the traditional narrative.
So how does this text justify the claim that you can walk a higher spiritual path by deliberately focusing on enjoying your current material human life.
Well, the author actually anticipates that exact pushback.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, the text uses that tension to critique those traditional ascetic paths, arguing that they focus entirely on the afterlife while completely neglecting the realities of this life.
Interesting.
The Lifechanyuan counterargument is highly pragmatic, and the author distills it into a super simple causal sequence. Without processes, there are no results.
Wow.
Without good processes, there are no good results.
Meaning the current earthly life is the necessary process.
Precisely. The text poses a highly logical question. If you do not know how to be joyous and happy as a human being, if you walk through your entire life wearing a sad face and viewing existence as this heavy burden,
Like a punishment.
right, like a punishment, how could you possibly handle the environment of heaven? If your internal structure lacks the capacity to generate and sustain joy right now, you wouldn't possess the necessary hardware to experience the happiness of paradise, even if you were dropped right in the middle of it.
Wow. It flips the traditional script entirely. It suggests that joy isn't the reward you receive at the end of a grueling spiritual marathon. Joy is the entry requirement.
Exactly.
You have to prove you can handle it.
The author uses a universally relatable analogy to really cement this idea. The text asks, if a student completely fails to learn the courses of primary and middle school, how can they possibly expect to study university-level courses?
Earthly happiness is the primary school for heaven.
That's the idea.
That is a fascinating way to reframe the human experience. It implies that practicing joy, forging connections, and dismantling that corporate security system of defensiveness we talked about earlier.
Right, the locks and the blinds.
Yeah, that is literally the homework.
It is the homework. And the text goes into detail about what a person who has successfully completed this homework actually looks like. It paints a picture of a Chanyuan celestial, someone who has perfected their life structure.
And their behavior is not what you would typically expect from a highly advanced spiritual master, right?
Not at all. The source material openly admits that to an uninitiated outsider, these practitioners might look like silly, immature children.
Which is so funny to picture.
I know. A newcomer might observe them laughing all day, flirting, playing, and seemingly lacking any deep, solemn wisdom. They just don't look like they are doing the hard, serious work of self-cultivation.
But the author argues that this perception is an illusion.
Totally an illusion born from the mortal world's misunderstanding of what true wisdom actually is. The text claims these individuals possess brilliant, crystal-clear understanding.
So why do they act like kids?
The reason they appear like playful children is that they have systematically eradicated fear from their structure. They have forgotten worry. They have even forgotten the fear of death.
Wow. It reminds me of the concept of effortless mastery, which we often see in world-class athletics or the arts.
Oh, that's a good comparison. Like what?
Well, if you watch a legendary jazz pianist improvise or an Olympic snowboarder in a halfpipe, the absolute highest level of skill never looks like strenuous, agonizing effort.
True.
A beginner is tense, right? They're overthinking every single movement, terrified of making a mistake. But the master looks completely relaxed. It looks like play. To someone who doesn't understand the discipline involved, it might even look like they aren't trying at all.
Right, because they make it look so easy.
Exactly. But that physical and mental playfulness is the direct result of thousands of hours spent removing tension, removing the fear of failure, and completely removing the ego from the performance.
That analogy maps perfectly onto the philosophy Deiform Celestial is outlining here. According to the text, these advanced practitioners have become so spiritually refined and ironically so foolish in the eyes of the mortal world that they no longer calculate what is in their own best interests.
Because there's no ego left to protect.
Exactly. Because they have eliminated the ego, they only know how to devote themselves to others. And this state isn't achieved by memorizing ancient texts or doing endless drills. It is achieved by aligning oneself completely with what is natural.
Yeah, the text anchors this idea with a really profound quote. The author writes, "The pinnacle of good writing is nothing special. It is only being just right. The pinnacle of good character is nothing unusual. It is only being one's natural self."
Only being one's natural self, that phrase is the absolute crux of their methodology.
Right.
The text posits that supreme self-cultivation doesn't require adding complex, esoteric spiritual layers on top of who you are. Rather, it requires stripping away all the unnatural, hypocritical, and selfish defenses we've built up until only the pure, natural, joyous baseline remains.
But getting to that baseline, stripping away decades of learned defensiveness, reaching a state of childlike joy where you genuinely no longer calculate your own self-interest, That implies an incredibly arduous process.
Oh, definitely. It's not easy.
And as the source text reaches its climax, it finally provides a geographical metaphor for this journey.
Right. The overarching metaphor of the entire document comes into focus at the very end. The author states that any traveler committed to this path of self-improvement must inevitably climb mountains and cross rivers.
But these aren't physical landmarks in the mortal world.
No, they are internal landscapes. And this circles us all the way back to the core tension we discussed at the beginning of this deep dive.
About the soulmates.
Yes. The text explicitly declares that the highest mountain a person will ever have to climb is the self.
The self is the mountain, which means that mountain is constructed out of everything we've been unpacking today. It is made of the defensive, thief-like monitoring we use against other people.
It is built out of the encrypted vaults we hide our true nature inside.
And it is formed by the hypocrisy and the selfishness that the text identified as the chief criminal of human suffering.
You cannot bypass it. The text makes it incredibly clear that you cannot become a celestial being, you cannot enter the 1,000-year or Elysium worlds, and you cannot find groups of soulmates if you insist on maintaining your present self.
You have to conquer your own deeply ingrained habits of self-preservation.
Right. You must climb over the mountain of who you currently are.
The metaphor is vast, and just when the text has you fully engaged with the sheer scale of the internal work required, Deiform Celestial pulls off a rather brilliant literary cliffhanger.
I love this part.
It's so good. The document abruptly shifts focus from the mountain to the rivers. The text directly asks the reader a series of rapid-fire questions. Where are these rivers? How many rivers are there that we have to cross? And most importantly, what actually counts as having successfully crossed them?
It raises all the necessary practical questions about how one actually applies this philosophy to their life.
Right, and then the author flat out refuses to answer them in this text.
Just leaves you hanging.
Totally. The document ends by promising that all of these mysteries will be explained in the backyard of Lifechanyuan in a future installment. It is a highly effective way to conclude the first part of a philosophical treatise.
It really functions as a deliberate pedagogical tool. By leaving those questions unanswered, the author forces the reader to pause.
To kind of digest it all.
Yeah, to digest the concepts of the life structure, the primary school of joy, and the mountain of the self before they are given the next set of instructions.
It gives the reader time to reflect. And I think that brings the implications of this 2006 text directly into your daily life listening right now. Regardless of what you think of the broader theology of Lifechanyuan, the internal logic of this specific document challenges us to examine our routines through a very harsh, revealing lens.
It really does.
Think about your own day-to-day existence. How often do you treat your current life like a miserable waiting room for something better?
It is such a common human trap. We often endure the present as a necessary, painful tax we have to pay in order to reach some future reward.
Like a literal religious afterlife.
Or it might just be reaching retirement age or finally getting that promotion you've been exhaustively working toward.
But if we apply the logic of the text we explored today, treating the present moment as a waiting room is a catastrophic structural failure.
Complete failure.
If today is the primary school where you are fundamentally obligated to practice joy, then delaying your happiness means you are failing the curriculum.
Yeah.
If you can't find a way to generate joy and genuine connection in the messy human reality right now, this philosophy argues you are completely unqualified for paradise, whatever that paradise might be.
We've really unpacked a radical reframing of existence today.
We have.
We've seen how the pursuit of a soulmate is reframed not as a search for a missing puzzle piece, but as a demand for total vulnerability and the shedding of our defensive encryption.
Right. We've examined how true spiritual maturity might not look like solemn ascetic meditation, but rather like the effortless, natural playfulness of someone who has abandoned their ego and forgotten fear.
And we've realized that within this framework, the most insurmountable obstacle blocking the path to any kind of better world isn't an external force, a bad circumstance, or, other people.
No. It is the towering mountain of our own self-interest.
The architecture of our own defensiveness.
So we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you step back into your day, building on the structural mechanics we've unpacked here. Let's operate under the premise of this text for a moment.
Okay.
If heaven is simply a space populated by groups of bare, honest people who have completely abandoned their self-interest,
Right.
and if the mortal world is just an environment defined by the absence of soulmates, where we hide our true selves out of fear,
Then the boundary line between the mortal world and paradise isn't somewhere out in the cosmos. It is drawn by your own behavior.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So what kind of world are you actively building with the people around you right now, in your conversations today, in your relationships, and the way you interact with strangers?
Are you doing the arduous work of climbing over the mountain of yourself to create resonance?
Or are you just using your interactions to build a taller, heavier fortress? Until next time, keep diving deep.